K.
Hey,
Welcome
how are you doing?
aboard. I'm good. I'm good. So, Eric, you're talking about podcasting strategies
Yeah.
to attract your high ticket. There's that word again, high ticket coaching clients. So, Eric, we've known each other for a while now. We share a mentor, and I know that you're very familiar with summits because you do your own too. So I would just love to have what you want to talk about. Is it 5 ways to attract your ideal clients?
Yeah, we can definitely dive into that. The
Okay.
overall point I would love you to take away from today is just the power of the relationship that you can build not only with podcasting, but in business and in society. Because today, I don't think we have enough powerful relationships. We're doing so much with tech and so much with artificial intelligence these days to make our lives easier. But as we do, we're sucking the relationships out of everything that we do.
Yes.
For the sake of ease. My wife just went to the grocery store today. Back when I was a kid, we knew all the people that worked in the grocery store. We
Oh
knew the
yeah.
counter, we knew the lady at the checkout line. Today, my wife goes online and she places her order online, and she just drives up, and the kid brings it all out to the car and loads it up, and we barely even talk to the guy.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
amazing how life has changed, right?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we'd go to the gas station down the street. Jim owned the gas station. He lived about 6 houses up from us, and he owned the corner Phillips 66 gas station. And
Okay.
whenever there was an issue with the car, she'd take it down to Jim and he'd take a look at it. It was a full service gas station. Remember,
Yeah,
they'd
right.
pump your gas and they'd wash your windshield. They'd even check the oil for you if you needed them to.
Oh yeah. In fact, my husband's first job was at a gas station, and
Yeah,
he had like a 5-point system that they did, clean the
absolutely.
windows and do all this. And I can remember my father used the guy up on the corner for all of his cars, for the mechanical and everything else, and he trusted him
Yeah.
because he knew him.
Yeah. And today we go fill up at the gas station. And we don't even talk to anybody. We pay
Yeah.
at the pump, and rarely do we even walk in.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Or if you're traveling, you might grab some really awful food for yourself.
right. Gas station burrito or something.
Yeah.
But a podcast allows you to be the companion of the person listening to your podcast,
Mhm.
because they're typically listening with earbuds. They're listening while they're by themselves. You're their companion. So when they're driving, they don't want to drive alone. So you're their friend right next to them. If they're exercising, they have their earbuds in and they're listening to you while they're exercising. You're their
Mhm.
companion. And it really creates that powerful one-on-one relationship. So when it comes to driving your business using podcasting, we're using this amazing, powerful technology tool in a
Mhm.
digital space to create powerful and meaningful relationships.
Yeah, and I don't think enough people understand that about podcasting.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, I'm going to really date myself, my first transistor radio.
Yeah.
And you fell asleep with it. You knew all the radio stations that you wanted and all of that. And that this is just the next evolution.
It is. And with the transistor radio, you could hear people from far away places late at night, because the signal would bounce
That's right.
and it
Yeah.
what that did is it brought to life images in the theater of the mind. And that's what audio can do that video cannot do. When you and I watch a video, we see the exact same thing. But when we listen to audio, visions come to life in the theater of the mind that are perfect for you.
Mhm.
It would be different in your theater than it is for me. I
Mhm.
see it in the way that's perfect for me, and you see it in a way that's perfect for
Mhm.
you. And that's something that is really difficult to pull off when you're using video. Now, people always say, should I do YouTube or should I do a podcast? Which one? I say do both if you can.
Yeah.
They serve two different purposes. YouTube is a huge search engine, so YouTube will get you discovered. But even if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'm not showing up on your phone in your playlist. You have to go into your subscriptions and then into my channel and then find my latest episode. And it's a challenge. but people can discover you on YouTube, send them over to your podcast, then to subscribe there. Now you can build the relationship, because every time you release a new episode, it's right there on their phone, right in their feed, and you're building that relationship with a conversation week after week after week.
Yeah. And Erik, something I was thinking about when you were talking about video is that, podcasting and, the personalization, we are able to engage our minds in a different way. It's like, it's like reading a book used to be, or something like that, where you're seeing that in your mind because you're hearing that voice. So it gives that, I think, even a deeper sense of personalization, because we have to visualize it in our mind.
Exactly. It's like when you read a book and then you go see the movie after you've read the book, and you're like, that's not what I thought it was going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not how I envisioned the castle. That's not how I thought the princess would meet. It's all different because you had a vision in the theater of the mind, and that's what audio can bring forward.
Yeah. And, it's so important with that, because, if we can't visualize it in our minds, if we don't have that opportunity, then it just takes so much engagement out of it. And I know when I won't go to a movie until I've read the book. I'm just that way. There are a lot of movies that never were a book, but the ones that were, because I always want to envision it in my mind and then go. So it's not that I can't enjoy the other format, but it does take away some of that creativity and ability to envision. Yeah.
There's something powerful in the imagination that podcasting brings forward, and it's amazing. I got my start in radio 35 years ago. I've been coaching on-air radio talent for 30 years. I've been coaching podcasters for 10. And when they come to me, everybody thinks they're coming to me because they want to start a podcast. Launching the podcast isn't the difficult challenge. The challenge is you get it up and running, and then you go, okay, now what do I do with it? And so how do I create great content? And that's my talent, is I help coaches take their content, take their information, and transform it into entertainment. Because if you're not entertaining and you're just delivering information, people won't come back. They don't see you as their friend. You're more as a lecturer. Why do I need to listen to you tell me? I can read it in a book. But when you're telling me a story and you're infusing it with your personality and your journey, all of a sudden it creates that story arc, and it engages your audience and gets them to lean in, so they want more of what you have to offer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. That totally makes sense to me. And it also makes sense from having been an educator, because I learned early on that even my students who couldn't read well would respond well if somebody else read to them, and it was always, we always had to use different learning modalities, because some people learn one way and some people learn another.
Yep.
And so having these different ways of reaching people is really important. And I think I mentioned to you, Erik, that now on LinkedIn, they have the audio, and you can do a podcast, but you still have to have that talent. You still have to have the ability to get that interest going.
Right. It's the difference between reading someone a story and telling somebody a story. When you tell somebody a story, it's so much more engaging. And it's fantastic. And a lot of people think, well, I need a huge audience in order to make my podcast effective. You don't need a large audience. You need the right audience. If you have the right people, imagine if you were able to get in front of a room of 100 people who came back every week to sit in that room and listen to you, and you were able to build relationships with those 100 people. Would you take that opportunity to get on that stage? That's the opportunity that your podcast gives you. I was working with Zoe Routh. She was a former client. She is down in New Zealand. She is an expert at people stuff. She's a consultant. She goes into businesses and helps them tear down the silos so departments can work better together. Yeah. And she has a podcast, which is fantastic. She does great interviews. And when she came to me, I said, well, how many downloads do you get an episode? How big's your audience? And she goes, I have no idea. I don't even look at that. And I go, really? Why not? She goes, that's not why I use my podcast. I use my podcast to open doors. I try and call CEOs and I can't get past the gatekeeper to tell them what I have to offer. When I'm calling for a sales opportunity, when I'm calling to invite them to be a guest on my podcast, they take my call all day long. So I have a call with them to invite them on the show. I have a second call with them to set up the podcast and the interview. So a little prep call. I have a third call where we do the interview. I have a fourth call when the show's published and I can share that with them. By that time, we've built a relationship. And now that CEO will take my call whenever I call because we have a relationship. It doesn't matter who's listening to her show. She's using podcast interviews to land clients by interviewing prospects rather than trying to turn her audience into clients. And it's just one of the great ways to attract your ideal clients with your podcast.
Yeah. So I guess you're right. And you really need to attract the right people too. You know, the people that we have a friend who talks about the purple fish.
Yeah.
And, you know, the people who are really going to be the ones that you want to attract.
Absolutely. Attract the right people into your audience, you know, and a lot of people want to create content they think the audience wants to hear. Create content that makes you fired up, that gets you fired up and makes you interested, because when you're interested, you're going to be interesting. People will find you interesting when you're interested in what you're talking about. If you're just talking about it because you think the audience wants to hear it, it's going to fall on deaf ears because it's going to come across cold and stale.
So actually being able to I'm sorry, Eric, I haven't had much coffee today, but this is a way to attract those clients. And that is such a brilliant marketing idea.
Yeah. It's just one of the great ways to be able to use interviews. There's, Jamie Masters runs a podcast called The Eventual Millionaire. And another way to leverage interviews to grow your business is to interview mentors. So if you have a mentor who you'd love to have dinner with or grab a cup of coffee with and pick their brain, you're going to find it tough to get on their calendar. They just don't have time for you to come pick their brain. Right. But when you can invite them on your podcast and you give them a platform to share their expertise, many of them love that. You will find very few, except for the upper echelon, the top of the top. Most people will jump at the chance to be interviewed on a podcast because it's a way for them to get exposure and market what they do. Jamie runs The Eventual Millionaire. She didn't have two nickels to rub together when she started her podcast. All she did was start interviewing millionaires on how they became millionaire. So 52 times a week, she would have a conversation, or 52 times a year, once a week, 52 times a year, she would have a conversation with a millionaire. And you know how fast her business grew? Like it didn't matter. It didn't matter how many people were listening to her show. She was just interviewing the right people. She interviewed mentors who could help her get where she wanted to go.
Yeah, that's just a great way to look at it, you know, opening those doors and using it in different strategies. And yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's just not knowing how to personalize it, how to tell their story, how to take that unique point of view and then open those doors. And to be honest with you, I hadn't thought of those two strategies. And they're great. They're really great. So
and whether you're on a podcast as a guest or you're hosting your own podcast, use a story arc to really engage people. So talk about where you were before your big breakthrough, then talk about the struggle that you had and the transformation you encountered, and then where you are today. And if you can create that story arc with your guest or whether you're being interviewed on another show, that story arc engages your audience and brings them in and gets them interested in the content that you have to share.
So Eric, talk a little bit about the what you just said, the story arc.
Yeah. So that story arc, if you're interviewing somebody on your podcast, tell me how you got started, where you were at the beginning. Then what kind of challenge did you run into? How did you discover what you do today? What was the big the breakthrough and the transformation you experienced. And they'll tell you about how they hit rock bottom. And then one day they discovered this thing, and that's where the transformation happened that allowed them to do this. So when I got into podcasting, I thought, you know what, if podcasters just used a few of the strategies and techniques we used in radio, their shows could be so much more powerful. They just need to craft better content. And so I started helping podcasters who were launching their show. The more I did it, the more I realized those that I could really help are coaches, people who teach people something. And if you teach people something, it's not enough to just teach them on your show. Let's show how you help them transform. And so through my podcast, I help people see how it's possible to build these powerful relationships with their podcast and help them grow. And that's what I do today. I'm really focused on helping coaches take their podcast. See, podcasts tend to fade away about 7 episodes. People launch their show, and then at that 7 episode mark, it's kind of like the 7-year itch in your marriage. The podcast just fades away. And I thought it was a myth, it was an urban legend. And I started doing some research. I was helping a client one time look for podcasts where she could be interviewed. So we got into her niche, and I tell you, about every other podcast I pulled up had 7 episodes and hadn't published since 2019. Like, it was crazy, but they fade away for 3 reasons. One, it's more difficult than they thought it was going to be because they don't have a system in place to methodically produce an episode. They're trying to create content they think the audience wants to hear rather than creating content that really fires them up inside. When you're talking about a topic you love, it's easy to go create your episode every week. So it's more work than they thought because they don't have the proper strategy. It doesn't grow as fast as they thought it would because they don't have a strategy to get in front of new people. I ask podcasters all the time, what do you do when you release a new episode? And they say, well, I send an email to my list and I post it on social media. And I said, well, that's great, but those people already know you. How are we getting in front of new people who don't know you? How do we get in front of the people who aren't aware of you yet and bring them into your world? We have to serve both sides of the coin. So they don't have a strategy to grow. That frustrates them and they give up. And then third, they don't have a strategy to monetize their show and drive their business, which is what I help them do with these various ways to attract your ideal clients and bring them in. They're all worried about getting 5,000 downloads a show so they can get an advertiser or a sponsor. And that's the worst thing you can do for your show. Go land your ideal clients with your show and bring them into your business. And so if we can get over those 3 humps, then podcasts succeed. And when I discovered that, that's when I started helping coaches and really started taking podcasts to the next level.
Yeah. And coaches, I think are, better at talking about personal things and what they're dealing with. But yeah, I mean, podcasts come and go in my life. There are very few that have kept me completely interested. And one of them that I ran across lately, because I am now in my 70s, is Julia Dreyfus, I think her name is. Yeah, she does one called Women Wiser Than Me.
Nice.
And she interviews all these women, like in their 70s and 80s, pretty much. Who the first one I heard her do was Jane Fonda.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, man, is there somebody that I would like to hear in that age group? And so she has all these really interesting people. And as I listened to her, I realized that those were some of the people that I wanted to reach. So she's really hooked my interest because I have a way of relating to what she's talking about. And, the whole concept of Women Wiser Than Me, I think is amazing.
Yeah. And podcasts have seasons in our lives, just like television shows. I used to be big into watching reruns of Cheers, and now I'm watching reruns of Friends, or they come and go. And podcasts are the same way. They serve that itch for a while. And then when you have a different itch, you find a different podcast. It's just like mentors in our lives and that sort of thing. But podcasts, they can be an amazing way to grow your business, not only through interviews, but you can demonstrate your products on your show. I have a couple clients, Sadie and Sasha. They run the Meathead Test Kitchen podcast.
Oh, I love that.
They are big into fitness and working out. and they test all of these products. And so they'll test like nutrients and supplements, and they'll test like yoga mats and weights and kettlebells and things. And then they'll review it on their show. And if they like it, they'll put it on their website, and you can go buy it through their affiliate link on their website. So they're not even selling their own stuff. They're selling other people's stuff through an Amazon affiliate link. They just talk about it on the show, how much they love it. If you want to buy it, go over to meatheadtestkitchen.com and you can click on it and buy it right there. And they generate revenue that way just by demonstrating and reviewing the product on the show. And so regardless of the niche you're in, if you're in a physical retailer or a location like that and you're selling online, that's a great way to demonstrate your products and grow your business that way.
Yeah, that's something that I would never have thought of. But yeah, that whole practicality of being able to bring, people products that they would really be interested in. And I'm guessing that they slam some products too.
Oh yeah. That builds their credibility, right? Because they're honest and they're authentic. If this thing's crap, like you don't waste your $5 on this thing. Like that's all part of the show. But like Rennie Gabriel teaches Wealth at Any Income, and he wrote a book of the same title. On his podcast, he shared part of a chapter of the audiobook to give people a taste of what the book is all about, and then sends people over to buy the book on his website. You can buy the physical copy or the audiobook or a digital copy right over there. I've had clients who share little pieces of their course, maybe a module of their course on their podcast, and you can get the rest of the course, the full course, and roll over on the website.
Yeah, so, I remember I was following Sam Lieberman for a while. With his stuff. And this is literally why I started listening to him. My hobby is stripping the woodwork in our house. And so every Sunday that was something I could listen to, and just kind of take me away from the chemicals for a while. So there are all different reasons for them. There are some that I absolutely will listen to when I'm going for a walk,
Well, and it goes back to that companionship we were talking about, right? You don't want to strip the floors by yourself, so you have your podcast on. You don't want to go out for the walk by yourself, so you take your podcast along with you.
That's right.
That's how that relationship forms. People get to know who you are. If you look at the market, that you're selling to, only about 3% of your market is buying today. They're actively seeking a solution to their problem. Another 7% might be convinced to buy today. Like, you know what? I wasn't thinking about it, but now that you mention it, I do need one of those widgets today. This is all according to research that's in a book that's called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes, which is a fantastic book on how to sell through relationships. So if 3% are buying today and 7% might be talked into it, that leaves 90% of your market that isn't buying today. 30% need your product, just not today. Maybe you're selling automobiles. I need a new car, but I don't need a new car today. Probably going to need a new car a year or two from now when my current car wears out. So I'm not in the market today. But if you start building the relationship with me today, a year from now when I'm ready to buy, you're the one I think of because we have a relationship. If you wait until your market is ready to buy before you start marketing to them, you're behind the 8 ball. You've already lost the game. People do research. Another book I read was called They Ask You Answer. It's a great book about market research and understanding what your market wants. That book says between 58 and 70% of the market has done their research online before ever reaching out to the company. So if they've already done 70% of their research, help them do it through your podcast. Build the relationship with them. 40% of the sales process is that know, like, and trust. It's that building rapport. And then the next 30% of the sales process is qualifying your prospect, making sure they're right for your solution and your solution is right for them.
Absolutely.
So that's 70% of the sales process. You can do both of those with your podcast because you share your story on your podcast. They fall in love with you. They get to know, like, and trust you. And then you explain the transformation that you offer when you tell your stories. They self-qualify themselves and they say, man, what Dumont offers that sounds exactly like what I need. We need to talk. And
Yeah.
so you're already 70% of the way through the sales process by the time your prospect reaches out for your discovery call or your
Mhm.
strategy session. I get people on my strategy calls all the time. The first question I ask is, how did you discover me? And a lot of them will say, I have no idea. I've been listening to your show for 2 years and I don't even remember how I found you. But
Yeah.
today I'm ready. And so here I am on the call.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can't wait until I think so many people focus on that point of decision.
Yes.
When they're ready to buy. And you're right, they want to talk to people all along. And that's with anything online or, in podcasts. They don't, they're in that exploration stage. There's awareness when they know they have a problem, discovery when they're looking at different kinds of solutions. And if you're out there during that whole process, then by the time you get to that point of sale, you're the one that's going to come up.
Right. You're helping them solve problems along their way. You're helping them do that discovery and that research. And you're showing them and you're being honest and authentic about their options. I'm not right for everybody. Like there are people that, they're a hobby podcast and they just want to crank it out in their basement and do what they do. And they talk like they talk. And you know what? Have at it. Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people say, I don't do my podcast to make money. Okay. I get it. You don't have to make money with your podcast.
Sure.
I'm here to teach people how to use their podcast as a powerful marketing tool to build relationships with their audience to make the sales process easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Erik, how did you get so wise?
It's been a lot of years of trial and error. When I started in radio, I started working overnights. So I was on the radio from midnight to 6 a.m. and I did that for about 3.5 years. And as I would work overnights, I would read everything I could about marketing and what drove radio stations and why people decided to listen to the stations that they do, the differences between men and women when it comes to their listening preferences and how to target your ideal listener and how to activate them and get them to act upon your request and recommendation. And it took a long time to learn it by trial and error. And now I just try and help people shortcut it so they don't have to put in the 35 years that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of us don't have that much time left to do that.
I ain't got 35 years.
Yeah. No, well, I guess I could rival Methuselah, but
well, there you go.
No, I think, a few more years of doing this would be great, and so I'm wondering, Erik, when a coach comes to you, and they have this idea, but they really don't know how to create a podcast that is going to reach their ideal clients or referral partners or where do they start with you?
So we always start with the end in mind. What is it we're trying to accomplish with the podcast? Are you trying to attract more coaching clients? Are you trying to build your expertise and authority in the space? Are you trying to build your network? We figure out what the goal is first, and then we figure out who your ideal target client is. When we can figure out your ideal client and we can turn that into an ideal listener, then we can figure out how to create powerful content for them that will lead them through that journey, that prospect journey, to that call to action we want at the end. So we have to figure out what the end game is first, because different styles of podcasts do different things. If you do an interview style podcast, that will grow your network, but it's challenging to grow your own authority in the space when you interview other people, because you do a great job making them look great. You look great by association, but people aren't really clear what you do. So I help people structure their interviews in a way that also helps build their authority a little bit. If you do a solo show, that does a great job building your expertise and authority in the niche, but it doesn't do a lot to build your network, and you have to promote it all yourself. You have to do all the heavy lifting. The great thing about podcasting is it's your show. You can do whatever you want. On my show, I do about 50-50. Half the time I'm doing interviews, half the time I'm doing solo shows.
Oh, that's
So
great.
do whatever you want. You can even do it both on the same episode. You can do half of it solo and then half of it interview on the same episode. But when we start with the end in mind.
Yeah, that's great. And I was just thinking that when you do those episodes and you have that combination of the solo and the interview, I've actually been thinking about doing something similar to that in a different area. I haven't started my podcast, and I will come to you, Eric, when I'm ready to venture.
We'll get you up and running.
Because I know people who have gone to you, and I've heard the stories, and I've heard how good you are with this.
Yeah, once we start with the end in mind and we figure out where you want to go, then we figure out how to use your podcast. For instance, if you're going to use interviews to grow your business, we need to know what kind of interviews to create. So you could use an interview where you are demonstrating your expertise with another expert, and you can turn your listeners into clients. You can do, like we talked about a little earlier, and interview prospective clients and turn your guests into clients.
Yeah.
You could interview current clients so you can up level them.
Yeah.
And at the same time, demonstrate the transformation that you've helped them experience. So you can turn your listeners into clients by interviewing current clients. You can interview peers and partners in your space that can help you get in front of other ideal clients and bring them into your world. So I could interview you. Then if you shared that with your tribe and said, hey, Erik interviewed me on his podcast, here's the link, check it out. Now that's growing my network. And then I can interview mentors as well, like we talked about earlier. So there are 5 different ways to use interviews to attract your ideal clients, all with a different purpose and all with a different strategy. But unless we start with the end in mind, we don't know which strategy to use.
Oh, isn't that so true? We really have to know what we're doing with it and know our strategies. And strategy is something that has come up repeatedly during this summit.
Yeah.
Is that you have to know who your ideal clients are, what they're interested in, and come up with the different strategies. So you said there are 5 strategies?
Yeah. So if you're looking to attract your ideal clients, you can demonstrate your expertise and authority, like we talked about. So demonstrate your expertise in the niche, offer them a lead magnet or something, get them on your email list, nurture the process. That really sits at the top of your funnel where you're creating content, you're bringing people in through free content, offering them that lead magnet and getting them to take the steps through your funnel. So that's an easy way to use your podcast to drive revenue for your business and grow your business. You could demonstrate your coaching on your show. So you could, like we talked about with our interviews, we can either bring on prospective clients, interview them, and show our audience how we coach. So they get a little taste of you. They see how you operate, what you believe in, what you value. You can do that with current clients as well. So those interviews can demonstrate your coaching. You can demonstrate little snippets of your coaching by answering questions. A lot of times what I like to do, I cheat a little bit. I'll go into Facebook groups where podcasters are, and they're asking questions in their Facebook groups. I'll steal those questions and I'll answer those on my podcast. So I may have 6 or 8 questions that I answer on an episode that demonstrate my expertise and how I coach. And so here's what I would do. If you ran into this challenge, I would go through these steps. So it gives people little bite-sized chunks of my coaching. I tell them a lot of the why, and I give them some of the what. And then if they want to learn the how, schedule a call with me and we'll dive deep into your particular challenge.
Yeah.
So you can use it that way. We talked about demonstrating your products, right? So you can demonstrate hard goods and send them over to the link to buy it, whether that's actual physical products or books or things like that. You can grow your business through networking partners. So bring your JVs on. Your podcast gives you a great stage to exchange with other people. If you want to get on their stage, here's a great stage for you to offer them. So I'll put you on my podcast. I'll be on your summit. You put me on your stage at your conference. I'll put you on my podcast. If you can put me in front of your mastermind group, I can put you on my podcast. Give me an affiliate link. I'll talk about it on my show and send people over to buy your goods so I get an affiliate commission. I've done that a ton of times. That's a great
Oh, yeah,
secondary source of income for my business,
absolutely.
just
Yeah.
marketing other people's stuff on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I only market stuff that I believe in and that I know will work for my audience.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that say, "Hey, I'd love to have you promote my thing," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's not really the audience I'm trying to attract."
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't share that on my podcast. So, those are a handful of ways. Demonstrate your coaching, demonstrate your products, give them little bite size, demonstrate your expertise and authority. Demonstrate or network with partners. You could also leverage it to gain media attention, because if you want to get interviewed on TV or radio or in an article or something like that, or even on another podcast, people can listen to your show and realize that you can hold your own in front of a microphone. You can actually string two sentences together, and then they can invite you on your show. It's almost like a little demo reel or a
Mm-hmm.
audio resume that people can get involved with.
Yeah, that's terrific. Just all these different mediums that are out there, and podcasting has. I mean, I know people who have worked with you, Erik. So I know that you deliver on what you say. And I wanted to get to you have a free gift, or I always say free gift. A gift is free.
Yeah, that's the point. So I've created a little mini course, and the mini course is called 6 Ways to Attract Your Ideal Clients with a Podcast.
Mhm.
And you can download it for free. So what it does, it comes with a PDF download. Let me get you the URL here real quick. It
Mhm.
comes with a PDF download, and it comes with a video that walks you through the entire thing. So it makes it super easy for you. These 6 ways that I've shared with you today are all spelled out in detail here in
Okay.
this mini course. So I walk you through every step of the way. I give you a detailed video. I even give you a case study in there of
Wow.
how people have actually put this to use in their business, which makes it super easy. If you go to podcasttalentcoach.com/attract, that is 7 ways. I give you a bonus way in there that we haven't talked about. 7 ways to attract your ideal clients with a podcast. Even if you don't have a podcast and you're looking at getting on other podcasts, it's a great way to leverage the attention that you get to get them on your email list, start nurturing that relationship, and really growing your business.
Yeah, that's so valuable. In fact, I know what I'm going to be doing with that, because we can all learn from that, Erik. And I just really appreciate your being here today. And I know you don't tend to do a lot on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I haven't done a ton on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, but not there a lot. I'm more of a lurker on LinkedIn than a poster. Like I go read everybody else's articles. I need to leverage it to share my own stuff more than I do, because I have nearly 1,000 contacts on LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's just a matter of leveraging the platform. I'm not a big social media guy overall. I love having conversations with people.
Right.
I'm building relationships and creating content and having that arm distance relationship on social media. I think I've just been burned too much by Facebook because, going back to the beginning of our conversation, Demont, there aren't enough relationships in society today. And I think that's why it's so easy to throw all of the hate and the fire bombs on social media. So many people do, because we don't know the people. And I'll leave you with this story. I was at a conference. It was a retreat in California. And the retreat was actually on the coast. I was staying inland, maybe about 30 minutes. And so I had to drive through upper California, Northern California, through the wine country. But it was a 2-lane highway, right? And it winds all the way through these hills. And the speed limit, I don't know, the speed limit's like 50. and we're doing like 42, right? And I'm following this car, and because it winds, there's nowhere to pass.
Uh-huh.
I'm starting to get, I can feel it building inside of me. I'm like, just turn, get out of the way. What in the world is going on? And I don't know where I'm going any more than this car in front of me does. Finally, I realize it's a lady, and she's driving this little blue SUV, and she keeps slowing down and speeding up and slowing down. And we finally come to a T in the road, and I'm like, oh, please turn left, because I'm turning right. Turn left, turn left, turn left, turn left. Please, please, please. She turns right, of course. So I'm behind her again, and we're going over the hills, and now there's like 3 cars behind me, and now I'm really getting pent up. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm coming up to my turn where I'm turning into the retreat center, and all of a sudden she turns on her turn signal to turn into the retreat center. And I'm like,
Holy cow.
what if I know this person? Like, now the guilt starts setting in, right? I'm like, I could know this. I'm really feeling bad that I was throwing so much hate at her because now I know her. And it turns out she's just turning in to turn around and go back the other way. So I didn't know her. And then I was like, whew, okay, 2 things. 1, I didn't have to confront her. And 2, I'm not behind her anymore. But that got me to think that, why am I getting so angry at this person? She probably doesn't know where she's going any more than I do. She's turning around to go back the other direction because she made a wrong turn. She's just trying to figure it out. I should have a little more patience with people. But it's so easy for us to get angry at people, and not let them in front of us because we think they're cutting us off. How do we know they didn't know where they were going, or they're heading to the hospital or something? We don't know. And I think we just need more love in society today. We need more powerful relationships. And that's what I want to help people do with their podcast, is just build those relationships. And I think doing better business is just a byproduct of building that relationship.
Yeah, and that's so important. I know that a friend of mine pointed out that the Surgeon General declared loneliness as epidemic.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So anytime we have a chance to connect with people, it just feels so good. And everybody gets upset in traffic and everything. Yeah. But I think as we experience it a little bit more, we do tend to become more patient in the whole business, unless we're trying to find the place where we don't know where it is.
Well, and I think that's what keeps me off social media, is because, especially on Facebook, there's always somebody complaining about something. Yeah. Where LinkedIn is more people trying to help people. And I need to be more engaged there. I'm just a little gun shy and shell shocked from all of the other hatred on social media.
Erik, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And like I said, I know the quality of your work.
Thank you. It is my honor to be here. Thanks for inviting me today.
Yeah, you're welcome, Erik. And we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.